When Daniel was a kid, his father built him a treehouse in the woods that stretched behind their house. It wasn't fancy, just a box of wooden planks nailed together, propped up by the thick branches of an old oak. But to Daniel, it felt like a fortress, a secret place that was his and his alone. Every summer he spent hours there, sometimes reading, sometimes sketching, sometimes sleeping in an old sleeping bag when his parents let him. As a kid, the creaks of the wooden boards and the wind in the trees had been comforting. It was his hideaway, where the world felt safe. But years passed. Daniel grew up, moved away, and the treehouse became nothing more than a childhood memory. He hadn't thought about it in years until life brought him back. Now in his late 20s, Daniel returned to his hometown after his father passed away. His childhood home sat empty, and the woods behind it were as silent as he remembered. One afternoon, walking through the trees, he caught sight of it again. The treehouse. It leaned slightly to the side, its boards warped from rain, its ladder missing a few steps. But it was still there, waiting for him like some relic from the past. Curiosity pulled him up the shaky ladder. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and earth. Dust covered everything. In one corner lay a stack of old notebooks, his notebooks, filled with scribbles and drawings from when he was a kid. That night, after dinner, Daniel decided to go back. He carried a flashlight and one of the old notebooks with him, flipping through pages of childish sketches by the beam of yellow light. The woods around him were quiet, almost unnaturally so. Around midnight, as he sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, he heard it. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from the outside wall, low and deliberate. He froze, the flashlight trembling in his hand. For a moment, he tried to convince himself it was nothing, maybe a branch shifting in the wind. But the knocks came again, clearer this time. 3 sharp raps against the wood like knuckles against a door. Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. Nobody knew he was here. He hadn't told a soul. The woods stretched for miles, and there shouldn't have been anyone around at this hour. He waited, holding his breath, the silence stretching until it felt unbearable. Finally, forcing courage into his legs, he crawled to the small trap door that opened to the ladder. Slowly, he pushed it open and leaned out, flashlight beam slicing the darkness. Nothing. The ladder creaked in the wind, but the ground below was empty. The trees swayed gently, their leaves whispering, but there was no one there. Daniel climbed halfway down, shining the light across the clearing, scanning for footprints or movement. Nothing but the stillness of the night. After a long moment, he told himself it must have been his imagination, maybe the old wood settling. He climbed back inside, shutting the trapdoor behind him. The silence returned, broken only by the sound of his own nervous breathing. Slowly, he sat back down, setting the notebook on his lap. He told himself he'd stay for just a few more minutes, then leave. But when he lifted the flashlight toward the wall opposite him, his stomach dropped. There was something new there, carved deep into the wood, letters freshly etched, was a message that hadn't been there before. The cuts were raw, splinters still curling from the edges. It read, "Welcome back, Daniel." The flashlight shook in his hand. His mind raced. He had only stepped out for seconds, not long enough for anyone to sneak inside, carve something into the wall, and vanish without a sound. He turned in every direction, heart hammering, convinced someone was still inside the treehouse with him, hidden in the shadows. The silence pressed in on him until every creak of the woods sounded like a footstep. That was the last time Daniel ever stepped into the woods alone, because if the treehouse had been his safe place as a boy, it no longer felt like it belonged to him. Every neighborhood has its legends. For the kids in one small town, it was a treehouse at the edge of the woods. Unlike the small rickety platforms most children nailed together, This one was almost like a cabin suspended in the trees. Its walls were solid, its windows cut into neat squares, and its roof slanted like a proper house. Nobody knew who built it. Some claimed it had been there since before their parents were born, but everyone knew about it. For years, children played inside, climbing the sturdy ladder after school, daring each other to stay there after dark. Parents didn't mind much. It was close enough to the neighborhood to feel safe, but far enough into the woods to make it exciting. Until one summer evening, 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl, told their parents they were going to the treehouse to play. The sun was still high when they climbed the ladder, their laughter echoing down the dirt path. Neighbors remembered hearing their voices, muffled through the trees, but when the sky turned dark and the children hadn't returned, panic spread. Parents grabbed flashlights and called their names, combing the woods. By midnight, the police were involved. Dogs sniffed the ground, search parties fanned out, and the treehouse became the center of attention. When officers climbed up to search, they expected to find 3 scared children hiding inside. But the treehouse was empty. Not just empty, sterile. There were no toys, no backpacks, no food wrappers, not even footprints in the dust that lined the floorboards. The parents swore the children had taken snacks and bags with them, but it was as if nothing had ever been there. The most chilling detail was the ladder. Half of it had snapped clean off, several steps missing. The break looked recent, the wood splintered. There was no way the children could have climbed down without help. And yet there was no trace of them anywhere. No footprints around the base, no broken branches, no drag marks. It was as though the children had gone up and never come down. The search continued for weeks. Volunteers scoured miles of forest, helicopters circled, and the story made headlines in the local paper. But there were no clues, no bodies, no answers. The children had simply vanished. Decades later, the treehouse is still there, though it leans with age. Its once solid walls are covered in moss, and the broken ladder dangles like a reminder of what happened. Parents warn their children to stay away, though most kids don't need the warning, because the legend has grown darker with time. People say if you walk past the treehouse at dusk, when the sun is low and the woods are quiet, you can hear them. The faint sound of children's laughter echoing from inside, not playful, but hollow, as though carried from somewhere far away. Some claim they've heard whispers calling their names, or the sound of something dragging across the wooden floor. A few brave souls have tried climbing up to prove it's just an old structure with nothing inside. They come back pale, refusing to talk about what they saw. But one story makes the rounds. A boy who dared to peek through the cracks of the wall swore he saw movement, small shadows, flickering across the floor, darting just out of sight. When asked to describe them, he said they didn't move like normal kids. The shapes were quick, unnatural, as though they were watching him rather than playing. No one goes near the treehouse now. The woods have swallowed most of it. Branches growing over the roof, vines curling through the windows. But on quiet nights when the air is still, the sound of laughter carries through the trees, and every parent in that neighborhood knows what it means. 3 children climbed up one summer evening, and they never came back down. Sophia grew up with a treehouse in her backyard. Her father had built it when she was 8, a sturdy wooden box nestled in the thick branches of an old oak tree. Over the years, it became her sanctuary. She'd climb up there with sketchbooks and pencils, shutting out the noise of the world. For Sophia, the treehouse wasn't just wood and nails, it was a private studio, a place where she could lose herself in her art. One summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sophia carried her sketchbook up the creaky ladder. The air was warm, the sky painted orange and purple. Inside, the little space smelled of wood and dust. She settled near the small square window, sketching the trees that swayed in the evening breeze. But when her eyes wandered from her page, she noticed something odd. Carved into the wooden wall just beneath the window was a message. The letters were jagged, uneven, as though scratched in with a knife or a nail. It read, "I like when you're alone." Sophia's stomach dropped. She hadn't carved that. At first she thought maybe her younger brother had done it to mess with her, but when she asked him later that night, he looked at her blankly and swore he hadn't been in the treehouse for years. The words stayed with her, gnawing at the back of her mind. The next night, curiosity got the better of her. She climbed back into the treehouse, this time carrying a flashlight. The message was still there under the window, its carved lines catching the beam of light. She sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchbook open, trying to push the unease away. The woods outside were silent, the air heavy. Then she heard it, a faint scratching, slow, deliberate, coming from behind her. Sophia's chest tightened. She turned her flashlight toward the wall and froze. New letters were appearing in the wood, the sound of splinters cracking with each stroke. She watched in horror as the carving continued line by line, forming words before her eyes. "Don't leave yet. I can see you." Her throat went dry. She scrambled to her feet, dropping her sketchbook, and fumbled for the trapdoor. The ladder creaked violently as she bolted down, nearly slipping in her rush. The night air felt suffocating as she sprinted across the yard toward her house. Halfway there, something made her turn back. In the window of the treehouse, lit faintly by her abandoned flashlight, was movement. A shadow shifted, stepping into view. She couldn't make out a face, but she could feel it, the weight of someone's eyes locked on her, watching her run. Sophia slammed the back door of her house and locked it, her heart hammering so loud it drowned out everything else. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, when she cautiously returned with her father, the flashlight was still on inside the treehouse. Her sketchbook lay open on the floor, but the new message she had seen being carved was gone, not scratched out, completely gone, as though the wood had never been touched. Only the first message remained, burned into the wall under the window. "I like when you're alone." Her father dismissed it as a prank. Maybe some neighbor kid had snuck in. Maybe her memory was playing tricks. But Sophia knew what she had seen. The words had been carved while she was standing there, the knife marks fresh and raw. After that, she never set foot inside the treehouse again. Still, sometimes, when she looks out her bedroom window at night, she swears she sees something in the treehouse window, an outline, a figure too still to be human, standing right where she once sat. And though the treehouse has grown old and weathered with time, one thing hasn't changed. If you go close enough, you'll still see the words etched beneath the window, the same words that greeted her that first night. "I like when you're alone."